Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sexy Business Podcast. My name is Lewd Neko, and I am joined here by Spooky Dangerous.
Hey yo.
And and today we are going to be talking a little bit more about Hentai Expo 2024. I recently did a stream where I watched through all of the trailers that were presented at this year's Hentai Expo. And so today's podcast episode is going to sort of focus on what makes a good trailer, especially for eroge, since you were tackling a bit of a more niche audience and you also have some more opportunities for what kinds of interesting trailer content you might show off. So we'll start by talking about some of the good things we saw, some of the highlights, things you would want to include in a trailer, things that got me like actually invested in some of these games enough to download some of them or Google them at least. And then also things that you might want to avoid.
Hell yeah. I think rather than talking about specific trailers and breaking them down, because obviously we can't just show them on YouTube, we're just going to be talking about generic stuff. And if you have seen the stream, we might call out some of the trailers we did watch so that you can go and watch them if you haven't seen it, or if you do, you'll kind of know what we're talking about. Um, but the idea is to give you kind of some ideas, some ways to get started so that you're not just uploading something that is going to get people not excited about your game, because you want to make something exciting and interesting and something that's going to and hook people and stuff like that. But where do you think the best place is to start, Nico?
I think talking about like art and characters because that's going to be such a central thing for most eroge, I would say,
Yeah.
because most of these, you're fucking some girls or fucking some guys or some in betweens or some monster chicks or whatever the else. And so obviously the thing that's going to get people interested is the character designs, especially since you could be trying to tackle a specific fetish or a specific niche. And so like I need to be able to see like what kinds of girls I'm going to be interacting with because that can be very make or break it for a lot of these games, especially when it comes to art style. Some people are really into like anime art style only. Some people prefer the more like Western sort of comic or cartoony, some in between 3D versus 2D. And so your
Mm.
trailers should really take advantage of the art and assets that you have to show off.
Yeah, I think it should, uh, as briefly as possible, introduce some of the key things. I think the first is character design. So not just showing off like one character, trying to show off a couple of different characters, because in doing so, you'll communicate to the viewer what the art style is. Uh, Whether the art style is 2D or 3D, they'll get a vibe for how high quality is probably not the right word, but like how high quality the art is going to be, and exactly how well it goes together. You should also introduce stuff like the setting and what kind of niches and stuff are going to be included, so that people will know that, oh, yes, I'm looking for a furry game. I can see furry characters. I know this is going to be my niche. And then also the gameplay genre. There's been many times where I've looked at like the banner heads that they have on itch.io. I'm like, damn, this art style looks sick. I open up the game page and it's fucking RPG Maker, or a genre I refuse to play. And so that's like another problem that you want to try and avoid. You want to be able to show a good mix of these things, like because and I wrote a note here specifically, which is Renpai engine and RPG Maker gameplay is not unique. But so many games are made with these engines. You need to show what is unique about your game instead of the thing that is the same about your game as every other game.
Yeah, because I'm also like an RPG maker, sort of judgmental type. Mostly because I think a lot of them just don't really do much with the gameplay. It sort of feels like a hassle that you have to go through to see the next CG. And so like if you're a game that's actually trying to use RPG Maker in a unique way, like actually having interesting combat or having different mechanics or something like that, show that, prove that to me in your gameplay. Like this wasn't a game that was featured in Hentai Expo, but Succum Brewery is an RPG Maker game, but instead of having RPG battles, it's like a bartender simulator, and that makes it really interesting. And I don't know if it has like an actual trailer, but at least in like the sort of screenshots for the game, you can see that, and that immediately made me go from like "ew RPG Maker" to like, "oh, this actually looks fun."
Yeah, because you can use RPG Maker to just make your character move around a setting and then have all of the actual interesting interactions be 2D or whatever, anyway. Um, and that's more of a game design thing. But in showing off your game in the trailer, you want to be able to have that moment, right? Where they go, oh, this is my character walking along. Oh, they've entered an encounter. Oh, I guess there's going to be some generic RPG combat here. What? Sight, it's actually a cool bartending sequence. Being able to do something like that in a way that is able to disprove any initial assumptions someone is going to have about your game, I think is important. Because the first impression does a lot for the game, right? Because it'll take a lot to change somebody's mind away from not caring about your game. So being able to, and the trailer is often going to be the first thing that they see if there's not like banner art or something like that. So you want to be able to show off a lot of the key parts of it.
Yeah, I should be able to tell what genre of game your game is by the time the trailer is over. And if I haven't, or if I have misconstrued it, you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Like even for Sex and the Furry Titty, they do show off a little bit of the puzzle gameplay, which like for a game like that, you wouldn't want a large part of your trailer to be like match three gameplay because everybody knows what match three gameplay looks like.
Mm.
And I will say I do like how they do their match three gameplay, but it's not like honey pop levels of unique or anything like that. So they showed off for like a little bit just so you know, oh, this is a puzzle game, but mostly they still focus on like the art and the characters since that's what's going to generally draw you. Where like the puzzle mechanics are more of a bonus if you're like, oh, I'm really into match threes, like me.
Yeah, I think it's actually a good example, right? Because the thing that Sex and the Fairy TV does very well is has really, really high quality 2D art of characters from a specific niche. And that combination of things can make a product really stand out from something. Because if you're like, this is an underserviced niche, there isn't a lot of people doing high quality art in here. Now, if I release a product that is going to have less competitors because it seems so much higher quality, and it's going to stand out a lot. And so rather than saying, hey, we've got the best match three game, it's patently false, there's millions, there's bound to be something better than you, right? And it's a hard thing to innovate on. And you go, okay, this is the thing that we recognize that we're doing really well. This is the thing that we want to showcase, but we still need to communicate to you that we have match three gameplay because that is kind of the core game mechanic. So you don't want that to be a focus. You want to show off the characters, the art, and the story. And I remember they had like some kind of voice acting and stuff as well, and showing off how the story is communicated to the player because that game is story focused. Whereas something different like Holy Knight Rika, which I think was possibly the best trailer that they had there. Basically, what Holy Knight Rika did was, what is the most insane shit that you can do in our game? We're going to show you 10 seconds of each of those moments back to back. And then at the end, it's like, here's how big our character creator is, and here's some characters at the end. And it was like all of the things that you wanted to tick a box to see what you would be interested in seeing.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, I think Holy Knight Rika might be commercial, but no, it is an indie game still, which is really impressive.
Mm,
But yeah, no, it had a really great trailer. It shows off a little bit of the combat system. It looks like it's sort of like a 2D fighter or like action game.
mm,
You get to see the protagonist for this one. So this was actually a DLC for the base game. I think it switches protagonists. Yeah, they show off that character customization, which got me excited because I saw an RGB slider and I was like, I get to choose the colors. It's such a simple customization option, but so many games don't have that. They make you choose from like a preset list.
Which is tough. Like in Vampire, having a character customizer means that every single time that character shows up, you have to have like a big block of options for it to have been stored or whatever, which is a pain. Whereas something more like, I'm trying to guess what engine that would have been made in, but something that's more built to handle 3D stuff is going to have rendering in it, and if it's rendering the character, like, okay, we'll just have the value stored to whatever it needs to render it as, and let you, the player, set that, which will give you more customization. And if you are able to add more customization, or you have it already, then you should be showing it off. You should be, because a lot of Vampire games aren't going to have that. If you're a Vampire game that does have that, then you should show that, or show how you've got multiple protagonists, or how you've got the way that the story arcs kind of work. My problem with can't remember which game it was, but it was a Vampire game because as soon as you saw the fucking text choice option menu, this is one of my biggest sins. I've played so many great Vampire games that are just fucked by having the default menu in there, and you just couldn't like put anything else. What I do in all of my games is I replace it with an image button because it just looks so much better, and I can put whatever I want on the image button. But like the default text menu looks so shit. And as soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, it takes you 15 minutes to change this. You could have done that and shown me that and got me excited about that instead. But I don't know, maybe that's a gripe that I have. But they were basically like, we have really unique routing and all of your choices matter. And I'm like, bro, that's just what Vampire does. All you're telling me is it's just not a kinetic novel. Like, you're not showing me a unique way that that happens. Like, if instead they were like, your choices matter, and then it showed, let's say Lewd Neko is the protagonist of our Vampire game, and it showed you living
Yay.
your best life. You're bouncing up and down, and you're happy and smiling. You've got your collar on, and you're having a great time. And then it shows you like rewind and select a different option from the dialogue menu, and then it's like you're out in the street, you're in a cardboard box, you're having a shit time, you're sobbing into a blanket. Then I can visually understand that these different outcomes will happen based on what I'm doing in the game. Because it's just so hard to say it because everyone says it and it means nothing. But like
Yeah.
in Doki Doki Literature Club, if they're like all of these characters die unless if you do this one specific thing and you can save this one person, maybe saying that is going to make me care more about which character I'm interacting with or something like that.
Yeah, no, choices matter is one of my like irks as a like visual novel enjoyer because I feel like a lot of Western devs seem to think that they're gonna make the best visual novel that nobody else has ever done.
Yeah.
Our choices are really going to change the story, and we're gonna have really deep emotional characters because no Japanese visual novel has ever done that. And to me, it just like makes me kind of roll my eyes. But I also set my expectations way higher because if you
Mm.
tell me you're gonna give me the most unique fucking choice system ever, and you give me like just the generic choice system that everybody else does, we're just like, oh, you have three possible routes with a good ending and a bad ending for each one. I'm like, that's just a visual novel, that's just a
Oh
choice based game,
no. Homie,
which
stop
is fine.
cooking. You burnt it. Yeah, I know.
um
I'm the same. I feel the same way.
One of the other things I enjoyed about, I think this would go for like Sax and the Furry Titty, Rika, a couple of the other games, is something that I think is important when it comes to eroge is like showing off the kinks you're going to focus on,
Mm.
or just like some of the more controversial kinks that might be in your game, especially if they're in bad endings. Because what I've seen happen with some eroge is that, like, for the most part, it's a pretty normal game, and then it has like one or two routes that are just like really fucking intense, or have like non-con or gore or like other kinks that would generally be considered like niche or upsetting.
Mm.
And what happens is, like, normie player goes in expecting sort of a generic like hentai titty adventure, and then gets to that route and is like, what the fuck, and like complains or gives a bad review. Like with like Holy Night Rika, it had some fetishes like war, for instance, which is pretty like controversial and
And
niche. It
not
has
just
some
like off camera or, oh my god, I saw
yeah,
that I got
like
eaten.
X-ray war.
Yeah, you see her inside of the giant that's eaten her, and you see like the me explaining it to non-vor viewers is the point of this
If
sentence,
you've seen
but
vor.
me being like, the continent, it's kind of like it's being constricted and it's like fleshy, and I'm like, fuck, hang on. It's very detailed. Put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, it also has like it seems like more of like a Riona type game because there's definitely some very like sadistic scenes towards the various girls, monster guys and girls getting all up on them, a lot of like masochism, and then again, there's that like part where like she gets picked up by a dragon and just sort of thrown, and I think the implication is she might actually be dead, so there might be
Mm.
like endings where the main character can die,
Or
and
game
like
over,
when it's
start
like
again.
these yeah, and when it's these like cute anime girls, that's something you want to make sure that you're advertising, because that's a really popular niche of like anime girls getting their just fucking shit destroyed. Like the Riona Jamler is popular, but also like you don't want someone to see that and be like, oh, I think this is gonna be just a sexy RPG, and then be surprised when the main character gets bored.
Yeah. Calling it now, I want to see a visual novel with permadeath. where like
Oh my god.
even if you load up a new save, that character's dead forever. That would be so
There,
base.
there's one kind of like that,
But
but it's like
yeah,
it would be a spoiler for me to tell you which one.
for sure. Please don't. Um, yeah, I think. Have you heard of Voracious?
I have not heard of
I
Voracious. Is
think
it a
it's
board
called
game?
Voracious. It's you are a dragon, and you are. I think you are the last dragon, and everyone's trying to kill you, and you kind of escape. And then you are trying to rebuild your horde, and you like find some kobolds, and they start doing quests for you, and you're trying to start collecting treasure and stuff like that. But it has a lot of uh, questionable content, like some non-con, some violence, and some stuff like that. But the way that the game is designed is it's not routes like a Trident, where like a lot of the stuff that I've designed, we just kind of like pitch it down following a character. It's got time segments where it's like the first time segment is you're escaping, and it's like this very plot focused thing, and then it opens way up, and then you kind of can explore the world however you want, and then after that, I think it's like you're actually going to battle with like the bad guy, and you're supposed to have like an army race or some shit like that. I never got that far. I was too busy fucking people. But what it does is it has this customization menu where it's like you pick exactly what content you want to see and want to not see. So if you don't want any man on man content, you can deselect that. And anytime that could possibly come up, it'll skip it, or it'll provide you a different routing so that it would not come up or stuff like that. Um, and because the thing's not linear or it just doesn't end, or in FTW, it's like this character is about to pee into your mouth. If you don't want to see that, you can skip it. It has no implications on the gameplay. Is immersion breaking versus we're just going to maneuver around this and you would have never known that it was there. And I think Voracious is the most elegant use of that mechanic. And I think that that's a pretty easy thing to put into a lot of games, but knowing that it exists, or like it could be a selling point. It could be the Voracious does this one particular thing the best, because I haven't played any other Dragon POV games where you can showcase that. We can say you're a dragon, you can eat people, and they die. You ate them.
Yeah, I've seen some games highlight that they have like some sort of customization like that. Like this is a much sillier example, but I know there's a visual novel out there where like you can customize whether or not the main heroine has glasses on,
Pog.
which is like
We love that.
such a tiny detail, but like they highlight that in their like Steam page, so you know someone's gonna get excited and be like, "Oh, cool! I can give this character glasses."
Hell yeah. It's such a minor thing, but like will make some people so happy.
Yeah, anything that makes your thing unique, whether it's like
Mm.
customization, interesting characters. We talked about voice acting a little bit. If you're an English game with voice acting, highlight that. That is such a big
Yeah.
highlight for me because most English games aren't going to have voice acting because most of them are indie productions. Japanese, a lot of the visual novels are commercial productions, so they can hire voice actresses and stuff like that. But you know, the average indie game doesn't have the budget to hire a actual like voice actress, especially one that's professional or has a good setup. I will say one of the visual novels, they had voice acting, but it was clearly amateur because I could hear background noise in the
Oh no.
character's dialogue. And that actually ended up being a turn off for me. Like I would not play that game because I would notice that. I'm like a very like
Yeah.
audiophile person.
Immersion breaking.
Um, but like something like PMC, which has what it seems to be like really nice voice acting. They actually have like a narrator that they had narrate the trailer. It was really fun voice acting. It helped make the trailer more interesting. You got voice lines from each of the characters to give you a feel for their personality. And they had this cute little moment where like the narrator calls one of the characters a bitchy fox, and she breaks the fourth wall and starts yelling at him and like threatening to beat him up. And it's like it's a nice comedy moment. It's something you'll remember from the trailer, and it also shows like some of the fun of the voice acting. So I really thought that was a good way of showing that, like, hey, we're a fully voiced English game. Here's what to expect from us.
Mm. I also think a lot in when it comes to figuring out what you're going to put in your trailer, think of what is the best game in your niche, the highest selling, the most popular, or whatever. Like, let's pretend you're making a fantasy hack and slash game, and like not even erotic, like just literally you're making a Skyrim clone, right? How are you going to make a trailer that tells everyone your game is not Skyrim, but people that play Skyrim will enjoy your game more? Like, you need to be able to convince them that this, you've played Skyrim, you've bought it on 10 different consoles, you're bored of it. This is the thing that you go to next, right? So you need to be able to show how you are different, but show how you do what they've done good. And it's tough, right? But you need to. That's like the core answer that you need to deliver to everyone who has that question. And most people that interact with your content are going to have that question. Like if they look at something like Shackles of Elswyn, they go, okay, how is this going to be different from Tales of Androgyny? And you're like, okay, well, the gameplay loop is way more story focused or something like that. Like, how am I going to differentiate between those two different products? Because they are very different. But TOA is probably arguably best in niche at the moment. Um, and then I would have to find a way to convince people that have played and enjoyed TOA to come and see what my thing is like as well. Most people, especially in porn, are really happy to enjoy more than one type of content. It's not like you're competing for someone, but you need to be able to show what makes your game unique, what makes them want to try it out, because they are not gonna. You're not gonna have someone go, "Oh, bro, you catch the football game last night," and that conversation replaced with, "Hey, bro, did you catch that big dick girl video game that came out last night?" Like, this word of mouth is just not the same as most things. Like the Ayo, hop on Helldivers 2, this is the new big game, you have to come and play it with me. No one's going to say that about Shackles of Elswyn.
Mm.
You need to find a way to communicate everything that makes your game special and it's going to make people want to click that purchase button.
Yeah, and then quickly to kind of highlight like some of the like sins or like things you probably shouldn't do. There was a handful of quote unquote trailers from Hentai Expo that, in my opinion, I wouldn't call them trailers. They were just like 2 minutes of gameplay that someone recorded in OBS. And that to me shows a lack of care because it's like you didn't even have enough sort of dedication for something like Hentai Expo, which is going to be seen by thousands of people, and they have like this dedicated, people who are presenting it and stuff like that. Like the least you can kind of do is make a minute long trailer that's edited or shows me at least different CGs or literally anything, but just sitting and recording 2 minutes. Especially if it's a visual novel and all I'm seeing is text. That's not interesting. And if your trailer bores me, that is like I think the worst thing you can do as a creator. Like a trailer can be like really shockingly bad and I'll remember it, or like it might be like, oh, this game looks bad, or like something or shocking or something like that, or it can be like, oh, this game looks really cool. I think the worst thing you can do is be boring because I won't even remember like the title or like what even that game was about.
Yeah, there was one other thing that I noticed from the expo, which was a trailer started off with old gameplay footage, had a transition, and then showed you what the game looks like now after a period of time of development. And then they didn't tell you that that was what was happening. So my
Mm.
first impression of what was 20, 30 seconds of gameplay was what the entire game was. And then they had this, it's like a guy running across a thing.
Yeah.
And then he runs really, really fast, and then everything looks different and better. And then they start introducing characters and stuff. And I'm like, why did you just spend the first 30 seconds of your trailer confusing the shit out of me? Just show me what your product is now.
Yeah, I think someone had to point that out in my chat before I realized like what was going on.
Yeah.
And like that kind of trailer might make sense if like you were doing a really big revamp and you were maybe showing that off to like
If
your
I've
Patreon. Like,
already seen trailer one.
yeah, but as a cold open for your game, you don't want to start with the bad stuff because someone might just tune out at that point and be like, oh, this looks bad. I don't really care.
Yeah. I did also want to talk a little bit about my experience cutting trailers because my trailers are dog shit. And I feel like it's hypocritical of me to come up here and say, here's what's good and what's bad when mine suck. But I've got two types of trailers. I've got ones on Steam that are really shit, and I've got ones on Twitter that are really good. The ones on Steam, they don't really communicate to you what's allowed and what's not allowed to put in the trailer. So I made it fully safe for work. And the trailer that went on there is from the very first release of the game. I've not updated it since then. So there's like 2 years of content or whatever has come and gone. and the trailer's not changed at all. And also, what's on the trailer is mirrored on the Steam page, so you don't actually have to watch it. You could just fucking read it like a recipe off the Steam page instead of watching the trailer. And that was because I think at the time, or something has changed, because I looked at a lot of other competitors and no one had any not safe for work content in the trailer. And all of the screenshots that you upload have to be marked if they're safe or not. So I was like, okay, I just can't put anything in there, which means I've got no good art to show. And so I made a shit trailer. But then on Twitter, and recently I went back and did it again, I made really good trailers. But it's more like a caption story vibe or like a PMV type thing, where it's pushing you through some of the story beats of the character and it's showing you the corresponding art that happens at the time, and it has captions from the main character's perspective. So if you had played the game and then you watch the trailer, it's still something unique and completely different because it's not a perspective that's provided for the thing. But if you watch the trailer, you're getting an idea for what the main character's thinking or what's going on. He's describing what's happening to him, so you understand the context and circumstances as it kind of plays through. And it's like quick and it's punchy and it's showing you lots of different art and kind of what's going on. Which is like way more interesting and way more impactful and entirely not safe for work and not safe for Steam.
Yeah, that is another sort of difficulty of making the trailers for these kinds of games. Like if you want to get that reached, you might have to make like a safe for work edition. Like if you want to put it on YouTube or something like that, which can get you a lot more views, but you gotta make sure you're covering up all the nipples and all the genitals, and that might leave you with very little to actually show off. So it's one of those things where I think you have to decide if it's actually worth it to like make a safe for work. In the case of Steam, you have to. It sounds like. I know they're really
Yeah.
weird about like the thumbnail has to be safe for work. And like but like the game images don't have to. Yeah, NSFW figuring out like what is and isn't allowed can be tricky. Even the ones for DL set, because DL site is located in Japan and the stream was streamed to Japan as well. All of the trailers for Hentai Expo, if you actually go and watch them, had to be pixelated.
Mm.
Genitals had to be pixelated per Japanese law. But what was really funny is I'm guessing they asked the devs to do this and didn't actually like look at them beforehand or didn't do
They
the
did,
editing
yeah.
censoring.
Yeah, you had
Yeah,
to provide
because
it censored.
some of them censored titties as well, which I thought was funny because it's not allowed or it's not banned like
Required,
in
yeah.
Japan. Like some of them even censored like male titty, which I was like, okay, I appreciate the equality. We're just censoring all the nipples.
Even before me uploading trailer with censored feet, let's fucking go.
That's only for the full release.
Yeah. Look, if you want to see feet, you gotta go on the fucking Patreon. But I don't know how helpful this episode was. We did talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but I guess the idea is to think about it as a customer, right? And this is an easy thing that you can look up better tutorials than this on YouTube. You can look up other trailers and kind of pan out and try and understand what it is. Like, if you had to describe what that trailer is doing without saying anything about the game or the assets or whatever, it's like, okay, this trailer is introducing me to the setting because it's showing me a mountain range or whatever. It's introducing the game title because we've got a big splash at the title screen. It's introducing some of the characters, or this is gameplay, dude swinging a sword around or whatever. And then you go, okay, I need to follow these same beats, or I need to shop these same things, and then try and go like that. Unedited gameplay, especially if it's run by engine or RPG Maker engine, is not going to interest anybody because it's going to look like the same as everything else. It is important to communicate the gameplay, but you need to show what makes your game different and unique about that. If it's a send up of a popular franchise, you need to show off your characters from that. Like there's an Overwatch Academy game, which is pretty renpai, but the upside is it tells a unique story about the Overwatch characters, and you get to see art of them when they're younger and in high school, and not actually the heroes we know them as, and stuff like that. So showing that off and communicating that to the player is going to be really useful because it communicates to them and they can understand what to expect from your game. And they go, "Ooh, okay, now do I want to spend money to be able to have this thing now that I have an understanding of what it is?" Which I think is kind of important. A lot of the trailers that I've done are just very story and art focused. None of it actually shows off actual Renpai stuff. Because I wanted it to be more like a PMV and I wanted to sell people on the characters. It was a Twitter release, it was not a Hentai Expo release. So understanding where the trailer is going to be put is really important too, Because if it's put on Steam, it'll have certain requirements. If it's put on YouTube, it's going to have certain requirements. And being able to tick those boxes too, I think, is important.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I would say is remember that oftentimes the trailer, or at least like this is more into like the promotional side of things, but like the Steam page or the itch.io page or whatever it is, that's going to be your first impression for this person on your game. So you got to make it count. Show me what's interesting about your game, show me the best art, show me the best parts of the gameplay. Because, people have very fleeting attention spans, and you got to convince me not only to stay on your page, but to go through with like downloading the demo or downloading the free version or paying for the like full version if it's a paid only game.
Yeah, part of it is going to be trying to convince people to, hop on the Patreon or make a purchase on Steam. So you have to think of a trailer that you've watched recently that convinced you to make a purchase. What was the last game that you bought on Steam? And then go and have a look at its trailer. And if you're seeing it for the first time, then that's probably not a good trailer to look at. You want to go and have a look at it. Actually, one of the ones that I thought was that got me really excited about a game was Partlier. This game, in its gameplay loop, it doesn't do anything specific or exciting, but its art style was so good that I was like, I have to go and check this out. For me, I'm like, oh, this is a My Time at Porsche clone, and the gameplay kind of is that, but the art style was really good and communicated a lot of cool stuff. So if you go and have a look at a game that you thought was really good or was really specific, go and have a look at its trailer, do research, teach yourself about stuff, look up YouTube tutorials on how to use DaVinci Resolve, like we've got in the background. And see what you can do to up your skills, or pay somebody else to do it. There are a lot of editors, and you can give them all the assets and explain kind of what you're looking for, and they'll potentially be able to do it. Maybe forewarn them that it's for a porn game, but you can always find someone that has skills that you lack to help you solve problems that you have.
Or watch Hentai Expo. Not only this year, but they have, I believe, 2023 and possibly 2022 available. So take a look at some of those trailers, see what you liked, what you didn't like, and then copy that or copy the good stuff.
Hell yeah, make some notes. But all right, that is it from this week's episode of the Sexy Business Podcast. This one is a lot more about the business, and again, trying to help give you an idea of some of the skills, some of the things that you need to be thinking about as a solid indie dev, like a lot of us are in the industry. Trying to help you get your best foot out, get your best appendage into the game, so that you can potentially make it as a big success amongst us in the sexy business. And if you have questions, about trailers, if you have questions about any of the content that we cover, please jump in the comments section and let us know. I answer all of the comments. I look at all of them. It's really not that hard because there isn't that many. But it does mean that we'll either potentially have a topic for a video and we can cover it in depth, or I can answer it for you on the spot and help get you started. Which is the point. The point of the podcast is to help teach you about stuff, to help get you into the positions that we are so that you can join us in the sexy business. And then don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button so that you can see more episodes as they're upcoming. Everything is in a playlist, so you can go and check that out as well. We've had a lot of episodes about silly stuff like waifus, but we've also had some really good episodes like interviews with other devs and a lot of explanation stuff that can help get you started. So go and check all of that out. Click the subscribe button to make Neko a happy cat, as we all wish to do deep down inside, because nobody likes sad cat Neko. And then hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.